So I was perusing through the newest episodes of this season's latest anime, and I saw how they were being rated, and it shocked me, honestly shocked me, that Dark Gathering was rated incredibly low. And I'm not talking like 60-70% where a lot of anime are at. Like, I'm talking like F- low. Tons and tons of people were just tearing into this anime saying it was garbage. And I'm like, wait a second. The manga is really awesome. Did something get lost in translation here? So I watched the anime, and I don't know what people are saying right here. I am here today to recommend to you that you should watch Dark Gathering, and I'm going to explain all of the many reasons why. Hi there everyone, Lars here from Camille's Harem, not just a podcast for novice writers by novice writers, but also a YouTube channel by novice writers for novice writers, because writing is an adventure, it's more fun with friends. And Scott and I actually had a look at this particular anime through its manga a couple weeks back, and we were both talking about how this was one that we were definitely looking forward to because the manga is just fantastic. And yes, the anime actually does an excellent job of carrying that on over. I will say that I think that maybe one of the reasons why people really quickly downvoted this are as follows. Number one, at the very beginning, the opening credits and the first 5-10 minutes or so do not seem well animated. It seems like it's going to be a really cheap show, and I think that maybe they did have some constraints with the budget, but don't worry, the budget is there for all of the horror elements. Once the horror starts kicking on in, immediately you can tell that there is a difference in the quality of animation. They're like, here's the humdrum life of our main character Kei and his friend Aiko, and now that they're going into the world of the supernatural, boom, it's no longer mundane, it's no longer slow, it is intense. I think another reason why people might have docked the show is because the main character, Kei, or Kaito-kun, is just really bland at first blink. At first blush, he doesn't seem like a very engaging MC, and the other person who does serve as the MC, Yayoi, this little girl, well, people are like, come on, why am I watching a show about college students dealing with the supernatural, and the main character is this little girl in 3rd grade, and oh no, don't tell me there's going to be some sort of lolicon relationship going on right here, downvote to hell. None of that's happening in the story thus far, at least as far as I have read and as I have watched. In fact, actually, there's a very strong implication of a romance or a potential romance between Kai and Aiko. And yeah, none of the weird lolly stuff is going on between Kai and Yayoi. So again, that argument I feel should be chucked out the window. And yes, Kai may come across as rather bland at first, and it's actually described why that is. He's trying to fit in, and within Japanese culture, you are meant to fit in. The nail that pops up is the one that gets hammered down. And oh boy, this guy's had a very hard time of it, being possessed back in high school, causing all kinds of weird shenanigans to happen. He has been a recluse and has been trying to rebuild his life from the shadows and becoming a normal individual. So yeah, he's going to be bland until the horror kicks in, and then we get to see his hilarious personality crop on out, and also the daredevil that he is deep down. The last complaint that I can think about that people lob at this story is that these characters are insane for going into these horror predicaments. Something is clearly wrong with Aiko. Kai is a moron for going back into something that tortured his life, and Yayoi is just, what on earth is up with this lolly? The thing is that's actually the point. That's the humor in a story that is actually legitimately terrifying and disturbing. Because here's the thing about Dark Gathering. It is the story about these individuals, these characters, going into the deep, dark world of the supernatural and exploring some of the worst monsters, curses, and murders that have happened throughout Japan, all in the search for what Yayoi believes is one of the most evil spirits out there, one that intentionally targeted her family and killed her parents, and that she believes is holding her parents' souls captive. She is looking for the absolute worst of the worst, but she hasn't been able to find it. So in order to find the worst spirit, the worst curse, and destroy it, she has been hunting evil spirits, capturing them, torturing these spirits, making them murder each other, all in the process of creating the ultimate curse that she can then unleash on the spirit that she's been hunting. This is some pretty twisted, demented stuff right here. And you don't just simply throw normal characters into that kind of a situation. Like Kai at the beginning, you turn around and you run away. And this is one of the fun things about Kai's character, actually, is that he's someone who, because he has experienced possession in the evils that the supernatural can inflict upon mortals, he has been doing his absolute best to stay away from it. And his grandmother, who's a Shrine Maiden, has been helping him out with getting rid, or at least containing, some curse that is growing over his right hand, causing all of his nerves to grow out of his skin. We have some disturbing stuff going on here. We don't even actually know what is happening here. There is a fun mystery that needs to be unraveled. Many mysteries, actually. A mystery involving Kai, a mystery involving Aiko, a mystery involving Yayoi. Each one of them is horrifying in their implications. This is actually a pretty good take on horror, and I'll get to that in just a second. But first, we need to just understand that, yeah, Kai is a guy who should not be here. He is a guy who understands how evil this is. He's trying to get away, and Yayoi and Aiko are pushing every button, pulling every lever, twisting every knot that they can in order to get him to do these crazy things. He's not doing any of this of really his own free will, despite what Aiko says about, you're a thrill junkie. You enjoy this. So yeah, you have dumb people doing horrible things in a horrible situation, because in any other normal life story, in any other normal circumstance, people would turn around and run away. That's why you have these crazy characters. That's why you have these demented situations, these demented pranks that they pull to get Kai to do these things, because Yayoi recognizes that he's got a very heavy curse that attracts other curses to him, so that way she can then capture those curses and use them in her own diabolical scheme. Now, here's the thing. It's really difficult for an animated story to do horror, and a large part of that is because when we watch something that is animated, we're already suspending our disbelief about what is possible. When you're reading a book, it's different, and especially when you're watching live action, it's way different. And when you are experiencing something for yourself in real life, oh boy, it's a whole other level. The more realistic something is to our eyes, to our ears, to our other senses, we are able then to connect even more so with the supernatural horror elements of whatever situation we're in, whether it be a cartoon, a book, a live-action movie, or real life. So a cartoon and anime will always be at kind of a disadvantage because we've suspended our disbelief, because we're watching something that's clearly animated. It is fake on many, many levels. This is where Dark Gathering absolutely excels, because it uses a juxtaposition of the normal, the mundane, with the horrifying. Kai is trying to live his best normal life, and yet he is constantly being pulled back into these situations, which are animated differently, they're colored differently, the tone, the pacing, the actual speed of the animation all changes to hint to you psychologically just how different and unnatural all of this is. We then get a fascinating focus on these different characters. I've already talked a little bit about Kai. Aiko is meant to be a mystery. She's meant to be a puzzle for things that happen later on in the story that are going to be really twisted and demented. So let's focus on Yayoi right here. She is absolutely phenomenal. I love the idea of a girl with two pupils in her eyes, and this right here is... I love how everyone's like, how do you have two pupils? Why do you have skulls for irises? What I love about this is that you have this girl who is naturally supernatural, but until the incident that leads to her parents' death, she is just a regular, normal girl. And this is a really neat little idea of, well, how do you actually defeat monsters? And you can have your white knights coming in, slaying the dragon, banishing the evil, the good cleric coming in and casting out the devil. In this case, no, we don't have any of that. And why is that? Because some philosophies call that for you, in order to defeat a monster, you yourself must become a monster. And we get to see that again with this really interesting juxtaposition of, here you have this small little girl who actually ends up being incredibly strong, and she is so fantastically twisted. This is where humor actually helps to build up the horror, because she's saying these funny things and she's doing funny things, but each time that she says and does something funny, it is immediately paired off with something horrifying, like when she's talking about how ghosts won't bother Kai anymore and she proceeds to strangle a ghost, or how she has these cute little stuffed animals that she puts ghosts into to torture them, to kill them. This is fantastically twisted, and the gore is used just right. This isn't Higurashi levels of gore where the horror is built up slowly and then it's unleashed all on you with just this horrible gore fest. You don't get that. Instead, you actually get a tasteful amount of blood and spit and vomit and body horror happening to show this is very much real. This is nothing going over the top. This feels like if this were to actually happen to you, it could be real. And that just helps to actually bring the horror closer to home. You don't need to go over the top to make something horrifying. You just need to make it uncomfortable, twisted and unnatural, and then drive it home. So as I'm watching Dark Gathering, really, to me, it hits everything that it should. The pacing is good, the characterization of the characters is really good. If the first 5 minutes feel a little bit slow, it actually ends up being very, very purposeful because of how the rest of the first episode is animated, and we just go on from there. You then get hurled into this insane roller coaster ride of twisted darkness. And again, despite the fact just how horrifying it is, it's never gratuitous, meaning that it just goes over the top. And this is something that so many people don't fully understand. Yes, there are stories where you can go over the top, and usually that's because you're trying to be funny or because you're trying to sicken people. The thing is that only works for certain stories. That depends upon the plot and upon the themes that you're playing around with within your story. However, if you're truly trying to scare someone, grossing them out only works for so long. Eventually, for instance, watching Higurashi, after a while I just got used to the gore, and it was more of the build-up to the insanity that was really spooky. When watching Dark Gathering, the whole thing is spooky and uncomfortable because it never goes over the top. It always makes it feel like this actually could happen. Yes, you know it's supernatural. Yes, because you're watching a cartoon, there is that suspension of disbelief, but it puts in the legwork with the characters, with the explanations, with the atmosphere, with everything to make it feel like you're actually getting pulled into the story, and that, again, this could genuinely happen to kids, to teenagers, to young adults, to anyone who happens to run afoul of these supernatural beings and their curses. So, showing restraint is actually a really great way of communicating a lot to the audience. And I'll just explain just a little bit more why that is. Because our imaginations are way more powerful than anything anyone can write or film or draw. Yes, there are some amazing creatives out there who can take their imagination and just bring it to life on the screen or on the page of a book. There are those people who can do that. But for the vast majority of us creatives, it takes a lot of work. It's not something that comes natural, and it's not something that always works. Instead, relying on your audience's own imagination is a great way of bringing out what you really want to say, because people fill in the gaps with their own imagination. So again, showing that restraint with horror, and showing people just enough to get the idea, but letting them then fill in the rest of what that pain would be like. What does this monster look like? What are those nerves doing in Kai's hand? What is really within that doll that is strangling him? What was that woman actually looking like before she just became this blood smear on the window pane? And what exactly is happening within Yayoi's room? We're given just brief glimpses, and then the rest is filled in with your imagination. Whether or not you realize it, you are doing that, and that completes the horror. So that is why I think that this story is really well done. It's really well done in the manga, and from what I've seen in the anime, it's still really well done. It does not deserve the abysmal F- rating that I've seen people give it. Definitely give Dark Gathering a try. And if you'd like us to delve more into the story as it comes out, let us know down in the comments. It would be awesome to do kind of a little series on this show as it comes out. Or are there any other anime from this season that you would like us to review and do videos for? I know that a lot of people are praising Helk, which I think Helk's really good. My Happy Marriage has completely delivered in just 2 episodes so far. So there's a lot of great stuff right now premiering. So let us know what you're thinking. And please, once again, do give Dark Gathering a try. It is a phenomenal story. But that's all I've got to say for now. If you're looking for good solid writing advice or for other great reviews, then please check out our other videos here on our channel, Camille's Harem, or you can also head on over to our podcast. Link for the podcast is in the description below. Also, if you would like to support us, please check out the books that we've published. Links for them are also in the description. And until the next video, y'all, thank you for joining us on this spooky adventure that we call writing, and tschüss.